What's up, Movement Masters? It's Shawn, Myszka, Movement Mastery and OptimizeMovement.com, coming to you with another quick tip. And today's quick tip is a topic that I often get super fired up about. It's the idea of designing an effective and efficient warm-up for any type of activity, whether it's a weight room workout that's going to take place, a practice, or a game. And you know, I get super irritated this time of the year when I go around day to day from camp to camp across the National Football League and see many of my athletes getting warmed up by their strength and conditioning staffs with what I would believe to be less than effective warm-up protocols. And it's for that reason that I take great pride in designing individualized, customized warm-up protocols for each and every one of my athletes, because you know, as you're going to find out over the next probably 5 to 10 minutes, is I believe that the warm-up activities needs to have great priority if we're ever to expect the most optimal levels of movement as well as then ultimate performance. You know, and I think the lack of priority of warm-up across most of our industry and profession has led to the ideas that movement just will occur. That then we get poor movement patterns and poor behaviors and poor habits. We also get a decrease in performance and an increase of injury. And I think we've started to see this trend across the National Football League. But I believe that the movement preparation time is actually our most important time. It sets the precedence for everything else that's going to come. Every activity that follows is going to be impacted by the behaviors and the habits and the activities that we selected to perform in the warm-up, or the ones that we forgot and neglected. And beyond that, it's going to prepare that athlete for the battle that's about to ensue, whether it's in relationship to the workout, or to a practice, or most importantly, to the game. And as you're going to come to find out over my rules and my guidelines, is even though I design a specific customized workout or warm-up rather for each and every one of my individual athletes, I believe there's some rules and guidelines that often get neglected that if we were just to follow, we're able to be much ahead when it comes to increasing the performance and decreasing the risk of injury. Now, every one of my athletes, of course, or every one of your athletes too, has their own unique movement signature. That's intuitively obvious. It's a topic that we've talked a great deal about. And they also have very specific movement demands, each and every one of them, depending on who they are, what the environment will offer them based on positions, as well as based on their respective movement strategies and the ways that they try to overcome what the environment gives them. Because of that reason, I, again, customize each and every one of the warm-up or movement preparation period protocols for each and every one of my athletes. But yet, that being said, I still wanted to offer you some suggestions and some rules, and that's exactly what we're going to go over today. Now, starting at the top of the list, all movements that are going to be selected in the warm-up activities are going to be those that are going to start slow, they're going to start basic, and they're going to start general. And they're going to progress from there into fast, complex, and specific. And all of that should be intuitively obvious. But again, I watch many of the movement preparation schemes that are designed out there by many strength and conditioning professionals or athletic trainers, and I often don't see that being taken place. We want to go from slow to fast in any activity that we choose. We're going to move from basic to more complex. So very simplistic ideas of movement is where we're going to start. And we're going to move into the most complex activities to where we include a ball or whatever it is that they may need to do, combinations of movement skills as you're going to see me move into. The same thing will occur then from moving from general to specific. So these first three rules are essentially lumped together. Slow, basic, and general to fast, complex, and more specific. Pretty obvious, but yet oftentimes seen neglected across the industry. Number 4 is probably my biggest pet peeve with the execution of any movement, but we have to set the precedence in the movement preparation period for the most optimal display of execution. And that means we can't have any half-assed execution of reps. One thing that drives me nuts across the National Football League is how they allow players to just get away with any movement patterns and behaviors just because that's the way they've always done it, or because they're not feeling it on that day. But that is going to set the precedence for not only how that athlete is going to move come the training session or practice session, but also those habits and behaviors that continue to get laid down. Remember, we are what we repeatedly do. So never allow half-assed execution of any of the activities. Okay? Number 5 is we're only going to select activities that the athlete has already displayed a high degree of proficiency and efficiency with. We want the athlete to begin to start to feel comfortable with the interactions with his or her environment. So this is important, that we only select activities that they already feel comfortable with. They're activities that they know how to do and they're comfortable performing, and they know what feels right versus that which feels wrong, or if they need to do additional repetitions, or if they feel golden and ready to roll. Number 6, we're going to include combinations of all types of movement patterns and skills that that athlete is likely to have to perform once the actual activity begins. We want the central nervous system to have to display and recruit muscle synergies and similar movement patterns to get the kinesthetic sense and awareness with everything that he or she may be required to do once the demands of that practice, of that workout, or of that game begin. So this is also important. These 3 here are all kind of lumped together. No half-assed technical execution. We want activities that are of high proficiency for that respective athlete. Now that's going to differ from athlete to athlete, of course. And we want to include combinations of movement patterns and skills that that athlete's going to have to display. In this regards, make sure that you are adhering to these rules as well in that progression from slow, basic, and general to fast, complex, and specific. Moving on now, we look at number 7, and I start to talk about inhibition or potentiation, or inhibition and potentiation. We know that each athlete may have overactivity or underactivity of certain respective muscle groups in that kinetic chain that are controlling the movement patterns that they're going to have to perform. And so what I look at from a customization or standardization standpoint with my movement preparation activities with each and every one of my athletes is where they might be overactive and where they might be underactive, for us to try and use activities that will inhibit or then potentiate certain areas and muscle groups. And this is a topic that would probably be up for debate to a certain degree, but with the high level of nervous systems that I work with, or the high level of athletes in their respective high-wired nervous systems, we see that this has a huge impact in regards to the way that they move acutely coming up in again, the workout, the training and practice session, or then the game. So we might, if we notice that a guy is very anteriorly dominant, we might stretch the hip flexor in order to get inhibition, and then utilize an activity for the glutes or the hip extensors in order to get potentiation there, or a temporary increase in the actual activity on the backside while decreasing or inhibiting the front side. And finally, we want to select or prescribe and suggest enough volume, but not so much. I want my athlete to do enough to where they can feel and groove the movement pattern, and they can start to feel it in a way that goes from slow to fast, basic to complex, and general to specific, but not so much volume that it's going to fatigue him or her. And this is going to be a fine line, obviously, depending on the individual athlete. So it's one that you'd rather have a less fatigued athlete than a more fatigued one, of course. And some athletes are going to have different ATP reserves, as well as they're going to be working at different intensities and speeds, regardless of how much conscious control you give them over that deliberate intent. So this is going to be dependent on the athlete. Some of my athletes will warm up for 30, 40 minutes before an actual game or activity, whereas some others I know that they can only handle 10 to 15 or something of that nature. So we have to be very selective in regards to how much we prescribe. But you got to kind of err on the side of caution and walk that fine line at all times. So hopefully some of these rules were enough to give you some ideas. Of course, I think some of them are pretty intuitively obvious. But if you start to adhere to them, follow them with the prescription of all of your warm-up activities, all of your movement preparation schemes that you design, I think you're going to find that the increase in movement efficiency and mastery goes up, as does performance, and hopefully their injury risk goes down as well. So a huge topic, one of vital importance for us to make sure that we're emphasizing and spending a great deal of time on, because it'll set the precedence for everything else that we do. So it might be one of the most important things. So for Shawn, Myszka, and Movement Mastery and OptimizeMovement.com, this has been another quick tip. Till next time, Movement Masters, let's go out and get it, and let's all continue to master the art of optimizing movement.